Welcome back to ABC General Hospital Spoilers channel. Today, we will learn about the explosive revelations and confrontations coming your way on Wednesday, December 17th, that will leave Port Charles residents reeling from shocking discoveries and unexpected ultimatums. Tracy's fury unleashed. The Quartermaine mansion becomes ground zero for what promises to be an absolutely explosive confrontation as the formidable Tracy Quartermaine makes her dramatic return to Port Charles, having just arrived back from what was supposed to be a relaxing and rejuvenating overseas spa retreat. Tracy is about to shake the very foundations of the Quartermaine estate with her righteous indignation. Brooklyn Quartermaine finds herself on the receiving end of her grandmother's fury as Tracy delivers a chilling warning that reverberates through the mansion's ornate halls. Tracy's declaration carries the weight of decades of Quartermaine power and influence as she announces with unmistakable menace that someone is about to discover exactly who they've been, foolish enough to cross. The target of her wrath appears to be none other than Drew Kane, the man who audaciously helped himself to priceless family heirlooms that had been carefully stored away for safekeeping. These weren't just any trinkets or baubles, but irreplaceable pieces of Quartermaine history that Tracy had entrusted to storage at Lulu's residence, never imagining someone would have the audacity to steal them. The timing of Tracy's discovery makes the betrayal even more egregious. While she was thousands of miles away, indulging in therapeutic treatments and blissfully unaware of the chaos erupting back home, Drew took advantage of the situation to commit what Tracy considers nothing short of grand larceny. The items he took weren't bequeathed to him in any will, weren't gifted to him by any family member, and certainly weren't his by any legitimate claim. Tracy's legal mind is already working overtime as she formulates her strategy to ensure Drew faces the full consequences of his actions, including criminal charges for theft. But the stolen heirlooms represent only the tip of the iceberg when it comes to Drew's recent transgressions. Tracy has also been informed about the harrowing incident involving her beloved son Ned Quartermaine, who suffered a devastating heart attack that left him fighting for his very survival. The details of that terrifying night paint Drew in an even more damning light, as witnesses have come forward to reveal that Drew callously left Ned struggling and gasping for breath outside Bobby's establishment, making no effort whatsoever to render aid or summon emergency medical assistance. This heartless abandonment of a man in desperate need has transformed Tracy's anger into something far more dangerous and determined: Charlotte's reluctant revelation. Meanwhile, in another corner of Port Charles, tension fills the air as Lulu Spencer confronts her daughter Charlotte Casadini in what promises to be an emotionally charged interrogation. The atmosphere is thick with unspoken accusations and maternal concern as Lulu demands answers from her increasingly uncomfortable daughter. The question burning in Lulu's mind revolves around whether Charlotte has been maintaining any form of contact with her father, the mysterious and currently fugitive Valentine Casadini. Charlotte finds herself trapped between loyalty to her absent father and honesty with her mother, a position that no young girl should ever have to navigate. While direct communication between father and daughter hasn't technically occurred, at least not through conventional means like phone calls or text messages, there has indeed been a form of contact that Charlotte can no longer keep secret. The confession that Charlotte is forced to make, clearly dragged out of her by persistent questioning, centers around a cryptic sign that mysteriously appeared at their residence. The object in question is a distinctive key adorned with a blue ring, an item that carries significant meaning for those who understand Valentine's methods of communication. Charlotte herself remains genuinely bewildered about how this key materialized at their home, having no knowledge that Carly Corinthos served as the unwitting courier in a clandestine operation that speaks to Valentine's continued influence despite his absence. Carly concealed the key beneath a porch railing at Lulu's house, ensuring it would eventually be discovered while maintaining plausible deniability about its origin. This revelation opens up numerous questions about Valentine's current whereabouts, his ongoing plans, and his determination to maintain a connection with his daughter despite the dangerous circumstances surrounding his disappearance. Family tensions reach breaking point. The Falconeri family dynamics have reached a critical juncture as multiple generations struggle to navigate the complicated revelation of Joe Palmieri's true parentage. Dante Falconeri attempts to bridge the enormous gap that has opened between himself and the son he never knew he had, though his efforts appear clumsy and insufficient given the magnitude of the situation. The awkwardness is palpable as Dante tries to implement the well-intentioned advice previously offered by Emma Scorpio Drake, who suggested that reconciliation must begin with genuine outreach and acknowledgement. Gio's response to Dante's overture reveals the deep hurt and resentment that has been festering since the truth came to light. When Dante makes what he presumably believes is a conciliatory gesture, Gio responds with barely concealed skepticism, challenging him with a pointed question about what exactly Dante's version of amends actually looks like in practical terms. The implication is clear. Words alone won't heal the wounds caused by years of absence and the shocking manner in which Joe learned about his biological father's identity, adding further pressure to this already volatile situation. Rocco Falconeri steps forward to deliver an ultimatum to his father that forces Dante to confront his own biases and limitations. Rocco demands that Dante stop treating Joe as an outsider or a complication and instead embrace him as a full member of their family. The younger Falconeri brothers' intervention highlights a generational divide in how family is understood and valued, with Rocco demonstrating a maturity and acceptance that his father seems to lack. The fundamental problem appears to be Dante's inability to separate his professional instincts as a law enforcement officer from his personal role as a father. His investigative mindset and tendency to approach situations with skepticism and caution are serving him poorly in this deeply emotional family crisis. Joe represents a son that Dante knew from the time he was barely a toddler, interacting with him over the years without ever suspecting their biological connection. This history should theoretically make acceptance easier, yet Dante seems paralyzed by the complications and implications of the revelation. Michael and Willow's aftermath. Jocelyn Jacks initiates a candid conversation with her brother Michael Corinthos that delves into the wreckage of his marriage to Willow Tate Kane. The siblings' discussion centers on the painful question of whether Michael genuinely believes there was ever a realistic chance of reconciliation with Willow, particularly in light of her affair with Drew Kane. Jocelyn poses the difficult question with the straightforwardness that only a sister can employ, asking Michael to honestly assess whether he and Willow would have found their way back together under different circumstances. The complexity of Michael's situation cannot be overstated. While his family members and friends have watched him become involved with other romantic interests since the marriage's dissolution, there remains an underlying sense that none of these relationships have truly filled the void left by Willow's betrayal. The fact that Michael discovered the truth about Willow and Drew's tryst in the nursery, but chose to remain silent about his knowledge adds layers of complication to the entire situation. His decision to keep that devastating secret rather than confront it directly speaks to either remarkable restraint or potentially unhealthy avoidance. The eventual public revelation of the affair came in spectacular and humiliating fashion during a New Year's Eve celebration, when Tracy accidentally played surveillance footage from the nursery that captured Willow and Drew's intimate encounter. The party atmosphere transformed into a nightmare of public shame and family scandal, forcing everyone to confront the truth that Michael had been privately carrying for months. This traumatic exposure has left lasting scars on multiple relationships within the extended Corinthos Quartermaine clan. Nina's dangerous gambit. At the WSB field office, Nina Reeves finds herself in the delicate position of needing to call in a favor from the ever-calculating Jack Brennan. The spy chief's response to her request carries unmistakable undertones of quid pro quo negotiation as he inquires whether Nina is prepared to make her request worth his considerable while. This exchange of favors in the intelligence community rarely comes without strings attached, and Brennan's particular brand of assistance always carries a price tag. The most logical assumption points to Brennan's interest centering on information regarding Valentin Casadin's current location and activities. However, Nina finds herself in an impossible position regarding this particular currency of information, as she genuinely lacks current intelligence about her ex-husband's whereabouts. Even if she possessed such knowledge, Nina would face a profound moral dilemma about whether she could or should betray Valentin to the authorities, given their complicated shared history and her lingering feelings of loyalty. Brennan's strategic mind may be working several moves ahead, potentially planning to leverage Nina's familial connection to Britt Westburn. If Britt possesses information or access that Brennan desires, he may pressure Nina to influence her niece's cooperation. This tangled web of relationships and obligations places Nina in an extraordinarily vulnerable position where any choice she makes could have devastating consequences for people she cares about. Drew and Willow's legal predicament. Drew Kane takes it upon himself to bolster Willow's confidence regarding the criminal charges she faces for shooting him. Their recent marriage provides them with spousal privilege, meaning neither can be compelled to testify against the other in court. This legal protection likely represents the primary motivation behind Willow's decision to accept Drew's proposal, creating a shield of mutual legal immunity even as their relationship remains fundamentally dysfunctional. Drew's assurances to Willow paint an optimistic picture of their legal strategy, promising her that they will emerge victorious from this battle, that she will be fully exonerated of all charges, and that she will successfully regain custody of her children from Michael. However, these confident predictions face a significant obstacle in the form of damning traffic camera footage that has recently come to light. This video evidence directly contradicts Willow's previous testimony about her whereabouts and actions on the night in question, proving beyond doubt that she was being dishonest about crucial details of the incident. The emergence of this surveillance footage has fundamentally undermined Willow's credibility with law enforcement and prosecutors, making her path to exoneration significantly more treacherous. Drew and Willow must now devise a strategy that either explains away the contradictions between her testimony and the video evidence or finds a way to have the footage excluded or discredited. Their legal team faces an uphill battle convincing a jury to believe Willow's version of events when objective camera evidence tells a different story entirely. Next, we will learn about the issues surrounding Jason Morgan and Britt Westburn's complicated reunion that has Port Charles fans on the edge of their seats. The chemistry between these two characters continues to captivate audiences, but this time around, the writers are taking a dramatically different approach to their connection. The romance between Jason and Britt wasn't your typical soap opera love story that unfolded over months of slow-burning tension and carefully orchestrated moments. Instead, their relationship exploded onto the screen with an intensity that caught everyone off guard, burned brilliantly for a brief window of time, and then was extinguished before it ever had the chance to find stable ground. The circumstances that tore them apart weren't born from betrayal or misunderstanding, but from the harsh reality of obligation and duty that governs Jason's world, now that fate has brought them back into each other's lives. General Hospital is making a deliberate choice not to treat their shared history as a convenient excuse to simply pick up where they left off. The medication mystery that changes everything. The catalyst for their current dynamic centers around a discovery that Jason couldn't ignore even if he wanted to. When he noticed Britt's medication, his instincts immediately kicked into high gear. This wasn't a casual observation that he filed away for later consideration. Jason approached the situation the way he approaches everything that matters to him, with laser focus and an unwavering determination to understand what's really happening beneath the surface. He asked direct questions, seeking clarity and truth, but Britt offered nothing in return except silence and deflection. Her refusal to provide answers didn't deter Jason in the slightest. If anything, it only strengthened his resolve to get to the bottom of whatever situation she's entangled in. Britt's response was equally forceful and unyielding. She pushed back against his inquiries with the kind of firmness that makes it clear she won't be bulldozed into revealing information she's not ready to share. The standoff between them remains unresolved, creating a tension that crackles through every scene they share. And here's the crucial element that makes this storyline so compelling. The lack of resolution is entirely intentional. The writers aren't dragging their feet or stalling for time. They're building something far more complex than a simple romance revival. This narrative isn't about two former lovers finding their way back to each other through nostalgia and passionate declarations. It's about control, about fear, about autonomy, and most importantly, about which one of these stubborn individuals will be willing to compromise their position first. Jason's protective instincts versus Britt's hard-won independence. Jason's approach to the situation reveals everything about his character and how he operates when someone he cares about appears to be in trouble. He listened carefully to what Britt wasn't saying, observed the small details that others might overlook, and began mentally constructing potential solutions before anyone asked for his help. The mystery surrounding the medication and Britt's steadfast refusal to explain its purpose created a puzzle that Jason's mind immediately started working to solve. It gnaws at him in a way that simple problems never do, because this involves someone who matters, someone whose well-being he genuinely cares about on a deep level. The medication issue represents more than just a medical concern in Jason's analytical mind. It signals potential danger, possible manipulation, and the very real threat that Britt might be under someone's control. His suggestion to have her medication reverse-engineered wasn't made lightly or casually. It was a strategic proposal designed to eliminate her dependence on whoever is currently supplying these drugs, thereby freeing her from their influence and potential leverage. In Jason's worldview, this represents a logical solution to a dangerous problem. He sees it as offering her a path to freedom and safety. But Britt shut down his proposal immediately and decisively. Her rejection wasn't delivered with explosive anger or emotional theatrics. Instead, she established clear boundaries and communicated firm limits that she expects Jason to respect. This distinction matters tremendously because it reveals the true nature of her objection. Britt doesn't reject Jason as a person or dismiss the genuine concern that motivates his actions. What she rejects is the specific role he's attempting to assume in her life. She recognizes that dynamic all too well, and she understands exactly what it costs to allow Jason Morgan to take ownership of your problems. Why their conflict runs so deep. Britt has lived through the aftermath of letting someone take control of her situation before. She's experienced firsthand how quickly help can transform into obligation and how easily protection can morph into possession. Her resistance stems from hard-earned wisdom and painful lessons learned. She fought too hard to reclaim her autonomy after everyone had written her off and assumed she was already defeated. That independence isn't something she's willing to surrender easily, even to someone she cares about deeply. The brilliance of these scenes lies in the fact that Jason and Britt never actually agree on what's happening between them. They occupy completely different perspectives on the same situation, and neither viewpoint is entirely wrong. Jason genuinely frames his concern and his proposed solutions as partnership and collaboration. He sees himself as offering support to someone he cares about, providing resources and options that she might not have access to on her own. But all Britt hears is control disguised as concern. She hears someone trying to take over her situation, make decisions on her behalf, and reduce her to a problem that needs solving rather than a person who deserves agency. Neither of them is wrong in their interpretation, and more importantly, neither is willing to give in first. This creates a stalemate that's far more interesting than easy resolution would be. The tension between them builds with every interaction because they're both principled people who have valid reasons for holding their ground. The history that continues to shape their present. The current tension resonates so powerfully with viewers because the real fear motivating both characters remains largely unspoken. Jason's concern isn't truly about whether Britt is sick or facing health challenges. His fear runs deeper and darker than that. He's terrified that she's trapped again, caught in a web of dependence where someone nefarious is calling the shots and pulling the strings. In Jason's experience, that kind of control is the most dangerous kind because it doesn't require physical force or overt threats. It operates through necessity and need, making the victim complicit in their own captivity. Britt's fear operates on a completely different wavelength, but it's equally powerful. She isn't afraid of dying or of her condition worsening. She's lived with those realities long enough that they've lost their power to paralyze her with terror. What genuinely frightens her is the prospect of losing the autonomy she fought so desperately to reclaim after everyone assumed she was already gone. That independence represents more than just freedom to Britt. It represents her identity, her dignity, and her right to make choices about her own life and body. This dynamic explains why their recent kiss carried so much weight and then collapsed so quickly. The moment wasn't designed to be a romantic turning point or the beginning of their reconciliation. Instead, it was pure instinct breaking through the careful walls they've both constructed, only to retreat just as quickly when reality reasserted itself. The kiss revealed the undeniable connection that still exists between them, but it also highlighted exactly why they can't simply fall back into each other's arms. Why Britt keeps pulling away. Britt pulls away not because she doesn't care or because she's trying to protect Jason from getting hurt. She retreats because accepting his help would require her to admit how narrow her options really are. It would force her to confront the reality that her situation is more precarious than she wants to acknowledge, and that vulnerability is something she's not ready to face. Admitting you need help feels like admitting weakness, and for someone who's fought as hard as Britt has to maintain her independence, that admission carries tremendous weight. Jason stays and continues pressing the issue not because he's trying to control her or because he can't take no for an answer. He stays because leaving would mean repeating the worst version of himself. Jason has walked away from too many people he cared about because of duty, obligation, and the demands of his dangerous lifestyle. The guilt from those choices weighs on him, even if he doesn't openly acknowledge it. Walking away from Britt now, when she's clearly in some kind of trouble, would be repeating that pattern. It would confirm his worst fear about himself, that he's incapable of being there for the people who matter when they truly need him. How the show is handling their history. General Hospital deserves significant credit for refusing to turn Jason and Britt's past relationship into a greatest hits reel of romantic moments designed to trigger nostalgia. The writers could have easily taken that route, replaying their most memorable scenes and banking on fan sentiment to carry the emotional weight. Instead, they're treating that history as complicated foundation rather than simple romance to be rekindled. Their time together in Canada matters tremendously to the current storyline because it established a baseline of honesty between them. Britt told Jason the complete truth about her medical condition and her uncertain future. She didn't sugarcoat the reality or try to spare him from the harsh facts. And Jason stayed anyway. He didn't run away or make excuses about why he couldn't handle the situation. He chose to be present with full knowledge of what he was signing up for. That decision meant something real and lasting. But then came the moment that fractured everything they'd built. Jason was forced to make an impossible choice when he had to marry Carly to prevent Sonny's criminal organization from being taken over by rival factions. Duty and obligation won out over personal happiness, as they so often do in Jason's world. That choice wasn't about not loving Britt or not valuing what they shared. It was about the harsh reality that Jason's life doesn't allow him to put personal desires above the safety of the people he's sworn to protect. Why this approach works better. That fracture between them never properly healed because the circumstances that created it never truly changed. Jason is still the same man bound by duty and obligation. Britt is still someone who refuses to be anyone's second priority or consolation prize. These fundamental truths about their characters make a simple romantic reunion impossible, no matter how much they might want it. A fresh start for them would have been easy for the writers to construct. They could have wiped the slate clean, pretended the past didn't matter, and launched into a new romance with all the standard soap opera tropes. But what the show gives us instead is infinitely better and far more sophisticated. We get a connection held in permanent tension, where care doesn't automatically equal safety and love doesn't magically solve practical logistics. These characters exist in a space where emotions and reality refuse to align neatly. The central question driving their scenes together isn't whether they want each other. That much is obvious to anyone watching. The chemistry between them remains undeniable, and the feelings clearly persist despite everything that's happened. The real question, the one that creates all the dramatic tension, is who gives first, who bends, who compromises, who takes that leap of faith knowing it might end in heartbreak again. Neither Jason nor Britt is willing to be the vulnerable one, which means this standoff could continue indefinitely, creating compelling television in the process.